Thank you. It was 2009, a few weeks before Christmas, and I was at the home that I grew up in as a child in Maryland. And one night, I was laying on the bed in my old room, and my mother, she slowly walked through the door. And I could see tears coming down her eyes, but it was difficult to tell because she wouldn't look at me as if she was scared of something. She walked to the other side of the room and then sat on a chair that was right across from the bed. But she was still silent, and so I asked her what was wrong. Then she took a deep breath and told me that her doctor had just diagnosed her with breast cancer. It went silent, but my mind was loud with fear. You see, the room that we were in that night, when I was younger, my mother and I, we had built it together. It was our project. When I was 9 years old, one weekend, we spent the entire time painting all of the walls my favorite shade of blue. When I was 11, one summer, we went to IKEA in the morning and spent the entire afternoon building the bed and putting the shelves together. And so in that moment of silence, it felt as if the room around me was taunting me because it made me question if we'd have time to create experiences like those again. But my mother's mindset at that moment was in a very different place. I went over to her and I sat on the floor right by her side. And then out of nowhere, she started telling me things that she had never shared with me before as her son. She started talking about how when she was younger, she used to throw talent shows and make clothing for people, and how her true dream was to open a jewelry store. But then she told me that she never pursued any of this because her mindset had been molded to avoid taking a risk. She was one of 8 siblings, my aunts and uncles, who grew up in a tiny house in the middle of South Carolina. But what they lacked in money, they made up for very well in status in the community. You see, her 2 older brothers, they were the first in town to go to college. Her younger sister, my aunt, had won the key to the city, and her older sister was the student body president with straight A's every semester. And so in their house, while the inside of their fridge was empty on some nights, the outside, the front door of the fridge was always packed. It was always covered with newspaper clippings, report cards, any external symbol for success. And so there was this feeling for my mother that if she didn't live up to this track, that she could be left with nothing. And so she taught herself how to play it safe, how to not mess up, and how to follow the track that other people had set. And now, years later, she was left telling her son, what if? And it was difficult. It hurt to see my mother in this position, but I also saw a second person within her who was free. Free because in telling me all of these stories, it had hit her that the rules and restrictions that had guided her life for so long were now insignificant. And I'll never forget it. At the end of our conversation, it was like 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning at this point. But she just smiled at me and said, I have nothing to lose now. And that's when it hit me that I was going to do everything I could in my own life to be that second person I saw within her. Free to not just follow tasks, but to take risks and to bring all of myself to the world. And ultimately, this experience, this conversation, it inspired me to drastically reapproach my own path as a musician. So I started playing the violin when I was 3 years old. And around that time, the violin was the size of my body. Right? I could barely pick it up. And for many years, I was that typical classical violinist. I played nothing but Mozart and Beethoven, all the music that you hear on a Diamond commercial. That was me. But there was this feeling that classical music was just so much greater than me, with all of its structure and tradition, just as my mother had felt. I felt as if I had to live up to some standard that others were judging me by, some formula to live up to. And because of this, when I would perform, the pressure would weigh on me so heavily that I became terrified, absolutely terrified of making a mistake. And before each performance, I would just obsess over making sure that I had all the notes down and making sure that my hand was in the right position. But because I was so consumed with these technical proficiencies, my music sounded technical. It sounded robotic. And the funny thing is, that was actually enough to get by. I passed auditions, and I never embarrassed myself on stage. But for years, my audience, they never felt anything emotionally at all. And isn't that what music is about? At the events that I speak at, I always enjoy getting to know and talk to the people who plan everything. And in my conversations, I've learned that musicians and meeting professionals, we actually have a lot in common. Our work is on a platform that is exposed, and we can be easily criticized by people who have no idea how much it takes at all. And sometimes there's this feeling that we just can't make mistakes at all because others are relying on us. And so often, we try to give ourselves a feeling of security by rigidly sticking to a formula for success that worked in the past or for others. And over time, we become really good at this formula. We never make mistakes, and we become extremely efficient. But we forget about people. We forget about people, the purpose of what we do. It's not about checking off boxes, and it's not about hitting the right notes. It's that we can immerse people in experiences that can transform the way they hear and understand the world. And when this is not our top priority, I believe that we are wasting our time. But there is a better way. And something that worked for me is that whenever I perform now, I ask myself a simple question. I ask myself, what am I seeking? Am I seeking to stay comfortable with what I play, or am I taking a risk? Am I seeking to do something different, to offer something truly unique, or am I seeking to just follow the formula? And now I've made a habit of essentially setting an intention every time I take the stage. And it's second nature. I don't seek to hit every note, but I do seek to take people on a journey that can make their day just a little bit brighter. The fact that there's somebody in this room right now who's going through a tough time in life, but a couple of minutes of music could bring a smile to their face, that is everything to me. And in the first piece I played, I probably made about 10 mistakes. But that didn't slow my energy at all because the purpose behind what I do is just too important to allow a few small notes to get in the way. It's just too important. My mother, she's one of the lucky ones. She's a survivor. But the week, thank you. Thank you, I appreciate that. But the week that she was diagnosed, the only thing she wanted to do was connect with others. From cousins to old friends, it didn't matter what she had on the schedule, what she had planned, she changed, she adjusted it in order to meet with them, to share stories and hopefully inspire them. People often say you should live with purpose. Well, what does that mean? And from her, I learned that it could mean living with the mindset that at any moment you're willing to change what you do in order to impact others. That at any moment you're willing to change what you do, try something different in order to impact those around you. That could be purpose. I'd like to close by playing one more piece for you today. It's an original composition that I created just for WEC, and you all will literally be the first people to hear it. And yesterday, I actually went back and forth on whether or not I should play this, and that's because I'm kind of nervous right now. I don't know how good that camera is, but if you zoom in, you can probably see the sweat drip a little bit. But I'm going to take that risk. And I'm going to take that risk because it's truly an honor to be invited here today. And what you do is so special. Truly, you bring people together at a time when often it can feel as if we're more disconnected than ever. And so for the next couple of minutes, I seek to take you on a journey with me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.